The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame. Turn your memorabilia into a work of art.
This is The Sports Source, presented by Bill Hotz and Associates, and by Renewal by Andersen, with your host, John Pennington.
A little bonus Sports Source for you this morning. You got a little peek here. It's a good thing I wasn't doing something obscene. Welcome into the Sports Source, presented by Bill Hotz and Associates. Happy to have you with us today. We have a jam-packed show, complete with Vol football, and Vol football. It is nothing but wall-to-wall football today, and we got tons of it. Let's dive right into this thing. First segment brought to you by our friends at Bill Hotz and Associates. Look, we've all heard lawyer jokes. Heck, even attorneys tell attorney jokes. The guys at Bill Hotz and Associates tell attorney jokes. But there's nothing to laugh about if you're injured in an accident by a careless driver. If that happens, you need to get serious and turn to Bill Hotz and Associates. They are the folks who can help you get through it. They've been doing it for more than 3 decades to the tune of multi-millions of dollars. Bill Hotz and Associates. We appreciate them for bringing you the Sports Source today. And I appreciate these guys for joining us today. We have Bob Hodge, Mike Strange back with us, Vincenzo Ferrara. Vince, good to have you here. And Chuck Cavaleris is down there. As I said, we're going to do a lot of football talk. One of the biggest stories of spring has been position changes. And this past week, it was guys shuffling left and right. Guys who had shuffled one way were shuffling back. New guys were shuffling. Lots of shuffling. Tyler Bird this spring has gone from receiver to DB, now back to receiver. Latrell Bumpus has moved to the defensive line. 3 guys are moved to the offensive line this week. Alontae Taylor, who's kind of made a splash. You hear a lot of good things about Alontae Taylor at receiver. While he's going to go back to receiver, right now they've got him playing a little bit of defensive back. Jeremy Pruitt checking him out there. So there's a lot of guys moving around. So my question, is that a good sign or a bad sign that you're moving all these guys around in the spring, shuffling them? I realize it's a new coaching staff. But is this a positive sign or a bad sign that you get this much fluctuation and you're still deep into spring practice?
Because it is a new coaching staff, that's the reason I go with it's positive. This was a bad football team last year, historically bad football team, and I think these guys are trying to do whatever they can to make it better. And if you just stood pat and did nothing and say, okay, we don't have enough DBs, but we're going to go with what we got. We don't have enough offensive linemen, we're not even going to try anybody. So I think it's a positive sign. Maybe not for next season, but from the coaching staff's perspective is, hey, we're looking for a combination that gives us the best chance to improve.
The one that got me was Drew Richmond, the cornerback. I mean, that set off some alarms. No, seriously, if you look back over Tennessee football history, there's been some great success stories of players who came here as this and changed to that and went on. Yeah, I can name 10 of them. It's so part of football.
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly, because not to Cavaliers the question, but seriously, it's a bad sign in regards to the depth of this team because they realize they don't have it. But it's a good sign that they're not just going to sit on what's happened and where guys were at what position in the past. They're starting from scratch. They're doing fundamental things, and they're seeing who can play. Even when he was talking about Alontae Taylor, he said, Alontae, I realize you're not going to know what you're doing, but I can tell if you can handle this position. I think that's a good sign that the coaches know what they're doing.
Yeah, you got to understand, too, a lot of these guys had some experience of that in high school and has some highlight reel of what they did, and it's midway through, kind of. And part of the thought was, well, what happens if we have 3 defensive backs go down? Who have we got that maybe we can put there? So overall, I think it's a good sign. And Coach Pruitt said now is the time you're going to do it. If you're going to try it now.
Okay, exactly. That all sounds very positive. I think it's a positive that the coaches are willing to do it. You know, that's something we've talked about on this show before. Will Overstreet beats that drum every time he's on here. He has in the past that, you know, if you get a guy in here at safety, they can't play safety, you move them to linebacker. If you can't play linebacker, move them to defensive line. If you can't do that, that's where your offensive line came from. And that's something that Philip Fulmer and that staff did when Will was over there. So he's a big believer in, if it doesn't work here, move them here. Find them that way. So I think that part is positive. But it's hard to get past the fact that if this were a good football team last year, you'd have guys locked into place.
Well, if it was
so to me, it's a negative.
If it was a good football team, we would have had a new head coach.
True, but to me, that's a good point. But it's a negative to me because the fact that you're having to move all these guys around tells me nobody's locked down anything.
Yeah,
which,
but maybe it works out well for like a Carlin Fields to me. Maybe it doesn't for a Tyler Bird.
It absolutely can work out.
So So I think it's worth to do, but obviously you're right. You don't have the depth.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have the team would have. I'd rather have the team that's returning this good starter at this position, this good starter at this position, this good starter at that position, rather than who's going to be here. Give him in there.
I'll go back to what I said before. You look back at the '90s when Tennessee had it rolling, when they're competing for SEC championships every year. They were changing positions. To me, it's not necessarily a red flag.
Seems like more this year than I can recall in the past in terms of moving guys around and shuffling them. A lot of it's been done on the offensive line as well, though, because you're battered and beaten there. You're thin.
And don't you think it'll be interesting who lines up where in the spring game?
Certainly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I would rather. It would be better, I think most people would agree, that it would be a positive if you were returning guys who were good enough and had locked down their jobs. That's all I'm saying. Doesn't mean it won't work out. Doesn't mean that the coaches aren't doing the right thing. I think Vince had it right. I think there's positive and negative. The positive is your coaches are willing to do whatever, whenever. Negative is they're having to. That's
you're bad. Once again, you're a historically bad football team.
Exactly. I think you can make your argument and turn it around and take my viewpoint. It's the exact same argument. It's just you see it positive, I see it as a negative. Because the bottom line, it's a bad football team. That's what you got. Team. So, I mentioned the offensive line, which is thin to begin with. Now, Chance Hall was back with a jersey on this week, which is a positive. Trey Smith's still out, but they are really thin. We talked about it before spring. Now you had to take 3 more guys and put them over there. From people I've talked to who've been over there to watch practice, they're very worried about the offensive line.
Yes, they should be.
Yeah. So does anybody, Chuck, still because you were alone in this one early on before the spring practice that it can be a positive in the offensive line. The coaches say that it's a positive.
Well, the thing I was, John, and maybe I didn't make it clear enough, was that with Trey Smith, you're not going to have him. Yes, it is a concern, but I want Trey Smith healthy for summer camp, for August. Yes, you're concerned about the offensive line, but I was saying my concern is Trey Smith is going to be able to play the season.
Yeah, I got that. Okay. I got that. My question is, we talked about the fact, and the coaches always say this, it's a good thing that all these guys are getting experience. Okay, well, it hasn't happened. They said that with Butch Jones said that as well. It didn't turn out to help that, we've got these guys out, but it'll work out in the wash because they're getting experience. Yeah, it doesn't play that way. So I don't know that all this experience, if you're still shuffling guys at this point in the spring along that offensive line, and I'm hearing that the offensive line is still the biggest issue on your team, that's not a good thing. But here's something else about Trey Smith. He only played guard last year. I think a lot of people thought he was going to go tackle this year. They're moving so many guys around right now. What are you going to bet that if they had Trey Smith, they'd be looking at him at tackle, they'd be looking at him at guard, and now you're not getting to.
I think he looks like he ought to be your left tackle. And I think going into the spring, that may have been what you were going to do, and you just never have had a chance. The one thing that moving on these guys does, say you find one guy who is on the defensive line, and you get him over to the offensive line, and he makes you better. Yeah. Okay, Chance Hall's healthy, Trey Smith's healthy. Now you get a new guy that comes in. Okay, suddenly you've got 3 guys that might be pretty good. So it can help you that way, but I think Trey Smith looks like he ought to be your left tackle.
Well, right, and I think a lot of people thought he was going to be your tackle. I'm just saying, we've seen them move so many guys around. It would not have shocked me if you had Trey Smith this spring. They probably would have given him a look at guard, probably given him a look at tackle.
They may have given him a look at center. They could have moved him anywhere.
And another thing that you miss out with Trey Smith is you miss out on the opportunity in him making everybody else better on that offensive line, because you get to actually be in there in the trenches with that guy.
Probably make your defensive line better too.
That's a good point. Yeah.
All right, good job, guys. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about that orange and white game next Saturday. What would be good signs? What would be bad signs? I'm just going to throw it out here and we'll see what they come up with on the Sports Source. We've got plenty of football today. Keep coming back.